I'm Marco D'Angelo, and I'm joined today by pregame pro Dave Essler. And we're taping here late June. We're almost at the halfway point Major League Baseball. We're the mythical halfway point, the All-Star break. Baseball, Dave, this season, you're having a good baseball season. I'm floating around the 500 mark. A lot of surprises this year in baseball. There's teams that have really come out of nowhere and are doing very well. There are teams that, were expected to do well and aren't doing well. And then there's some of those teams that are right in the middle of the road. And ironically enough, in one of those teams that we're going to talk about, kind of middle of the road surprise, being just a 500 ball club has resulted in big profits because this has been a perennial loser that now that they're at 500, and it illustrates so much to me the whole concept of betting baseball. It all lies in underdogs. And the example of that, go ahead, you can say the team. I won't say it because I'll sound like a homer. But
well, you are. The Pittsburgh Pirates.
The Pittsburgh Pirates have not had a winning season since. Do you know what year, last year it was?
No, and if I didn't bet on them, it really doesn't matter. Unless you're from Pittsburgh.
1992.
Wow.
Bonds, Bonilla, Drabek. Think about that.
That may even be after Manny Sanguillen, wasn't it?
Manny Sanguillen, yeah, that was after Manny Sanguillen, Willie Stargell,
wow.
Andy Van Slyke. I grew up with all those. Manny Sanguillen, the road runner, used to beep beep running to first base. You're bringing up childhood memories for me, and Willie Stargell and spread.
You should go to the garage with me.
That might get me in trouble, but with what you're telling me, the Pittsburgh Pirates, here's a team that is sitting at 500. But if you've been betting this team all year, you're ahead, even though they're only a 500 ball club. And the reason for that is because being a bad ball club for all those years, they're pretty much an underdog most of their games. And it just shows that you don't have to have a great record if you're betting underdogs to show a profit. And Pittsburgh is the epitome of that this season. They're doing it with great pitching.
Yeah, they are, which is really surprising. I mean, their bullpen has been, I don't know where they came from.
The starters are giving them quality starts, those 2-3 run games, and the bullpen's not blowing up like it's done in years past. They're not getting a lot of hitting. The Pirates, you're not going to get, if you bet the Pittsburgh Pirates, don't expect to have a lot of 7-6.
Don't take the over.
Yeah, don't look for 7-6 ball games too often. But they're getting it done, and if this young crop of pitchers, continues to play well. Now the problem, and we'll see what happens later in the season. And I'm somebody that I'm a firm believer, and we had some handicapping theories. We did another video earlier, and I didn't mention this, but I firmly believe the pitcher has the advantage over the hitter first time around the league all the time. When you've got a young guy coming up, I'm always going to look for that guy in his first start, second start, and he's going to have an advantage. One, that guy's going to be focused. It's his major league debut, blah, blah, blah. And the hitters haven't seen him. You might have saw him in spring training a couple times, whatever, but for the most part, he's got an edge. Now, when those young pitchers start making their second and third trip through the league, then that advantage switches the other way. And these teams that survive by great pitching early and have a young staff, there's more of a tendency for that to go the other way second half of the season as the pitchers become more, known and seen. So obviously you agree with that. You can't talk about this season and say the biggest surprise in baseball has to be the Cleveland Indians. I mean, did you see the Indians coming where they're at right
absolutely now? Not. I never expected them to get the pitching that they're getting. And their bullpen ERA over the last week is like 0.36. And then they've actually had to pitch a fair bit of innings and against some decent teams. I don't know if they can keep it up, but for the people that live in Cleveland, I hope they can.
It's a situation that, again, very similar to Pittsburgh, is a team that's not had a winning team in a long time. And here they are.
How about that? They went like 18-2 at home before they were actually favored.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. And then everybody kept saying, oh, wait for the other shoe to fall, wait for them to come back to earth. And then they had a stretch where they lost 10 out of 12 games, and all the pundits were, see. But again,
but you can take advantage of that.
Exactly.
In those numbers. It's now they're undervalued again.
Right, and we talked about you have to look at who teams played. During that 12-game stretch, they played Texas, they played the Yankees, they played Minnesota and Detroit. Texas and Yankees, preseason favorites to win their divisions.
Right.
Detroit and Minnesota,
division rivals, were motivated.
In preseason favorites to be basically 1-2 in that division. Now, Minnesota obviously has had problems this year and not lived up to expectations, but when they did play Minnesota was in the beginning of that winning streak that they just had. So you have to look inside the numbers, and I actually did a post in the forums right after that 10-2, where they lost 10 out of 12, and said there's going to be value on them, and they proceeded to win 4 out of the next 5, right after that, because you got to look at who these teams are playing.
Did you play them all 5 times?
I had them in one of the 5.
Don't you hate leaving leans on the table like that?
It just, I do a radio show. It's uncanny. I do a radio show 3 nights a week. It's a Chris Townsend show. It's on. You got to be up late at night on the East Coast, but it's 10:40 Vegas time, and I generally give him on the show 3 games. Now, I'm not a guy that puts out
3 games a day. Right.
But on his show, because he wants bulk, and I do that. And every time I go 2-1, in the one,
you're one. That was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was like the other night. It was funny. The Monday night, we and him actually got in an argument on the radio. He said I was crazy with the pick. I took the Minnesota Twins, the first game of the road trip, going into San Francisco, because Minnesota was on the winning streak, taking the momentum out on the road, playing San Francisco, returning home, looking to bounce back off of a road trip, and I took Minnesota to like a $1.50 dog, and he says I'm nuts. The Giants at Candlestick, blah blah, or Pac Bell, they're just they got magic at home and this and that, and he said you're nuts. He says well, Minnesota jumped out to an 8-0 lead.
Oh yeah, in the first inning.
Yeah. And I'm texting him relentlessly.
I wouldn't text him. I just sit back and wait for him to text me.
Yeah, and it was funny. So when we went on the show the next day, when I went on the show Wednesday night, we had fun with that. But speaking of his show, the biggest surprise for me, we did a bet. It was kind of fun this year. Him, the producer of the show, and a couple other of his regular guests, where we had to pick who we thought was going to be the worst team in baseball this year. Not the everybody always says who's going to
record-wise.
Record-wise, we had to do that, and we got a pretty big bet, because the loser, whoever is the loser, has to take everybody to a really fancy steakhouse. And when you get a bunch of guys in steakhouse and drinking, it's not going to be a cheap bill.
No, it's not.
Okay, and I think there's like 7 or 8 guys.
Well, who do you have?
I have Arizona. I was between Arizona.
You're buying, buddy.
I was between Arizona and Houston, and boy, did I pick the wrong one.
Yeah, that was the coin flip with 2 heads, wasn't it? Yeah.
And the funny part of it is that most of the guys, like right now, the last couple weeks, the guys that have the picks, I have Arizona. Chris Townsend took the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they're at 500. He's at 500. Another guy has Washington, and they've been on this winning streak for the last 2 weeks.
They could make the playoffs if they keep this up.
But one guy did pick the Cleveland Indians, and I'm just hoping that Cleveland.
Oh wow!
That Cleveland can hang on longer than Arizona.
They had an interleague series, no? Maybe not.
Cleveland right now. The bad part is Cleveland's going out to Frisco this weekend for interleague play.
I couldn't remember if Cleveland had to play Arizona or not.
I don't know if they have Arizona on the schedule. They are playing the West.
You should maybe double down if they do. So I would suggest
it's gonna be bad. So this is gonna, because really I think that Arizona's playing in a weak division this year. The Giants aren't hitting the ball. San Diego never could.
I think the Giants are going to catch them.
I hope they catch him and go way past it. I need Arizona to lose some games.
I think they will. San Francisco's been there, done that recently. Same, and I'm impressed with after they lost Posey, they kind of and now they seem to be kind of getting their mojo back a little bit, and the pitching's coming back, and they got to be happy with where they're at considering what they've gone through.
They had
if they're in striking distance in August, I mean, I can almost see a repeat of last year.
I mean, they had a stretch. I think it was like 7 out of 8 games where they scored 3 runs. I mean, they're just, they're not scoring runs, so they got to rely on the pitching. And
well, they got it though.
They got it. It's just, boy, it's tough when when your pitcher's got to go out there every night and knows he's got to be like near perfect. I mean, you talk about the, again, go back to a horse. Racing a horse on its toes every week. They're just not going to last that way. When you
Did you really think Arizona's pitching was that bad?
Joe
Saunders doesn't start every game.
Tell me you thought that Arizona was going to be where
well,
they're
no,
at.
of course not. But I mean,
all I know is if I would have went with my second choice, Houston, I was on the clock and I had Arizona and Houston both available, and I was like back and forth, and I didn't want, to be honest, one of his big.
It's kind of one of those things like Houston. It looks too easy, so it probably is. Yeah. So maybe we better take the other one.
And I didn't. And his one of his big markets is Houston. They're on a big station in Houston because it's a affiliate, and I didn't want to piss everybody off.
Why?
And,
that'd be like attention. You would have people in Houston buying your place.
Yeah.
Or
or
they got guns in Texas.
Yeah,
good call.
But the scary part of it is, again, going back to the bill with this bet, is all of these guys insist they can eat as much as I or more. And I know how much I can eat.
Even if they don't, they're going to try.
I know what I can eat.
You're in trouble.
And I've seen Chris drink firsthand, and that's the scary part. He can run the bill up real quick there.
Well, I'll keep my eye on the Cardinals for you. But I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope.
Not a whole lot. Anybody you think might be overrated for the second half of the season or underrated?
I think Texas might be a little overrated. I mean, they got out of the gate real quick, and I'm not sure I trust their pitching.
Pitching's starting to come back to our.
And overrated. I mean, they're going to be heavily favored because of what they did, because Josh Hamilton came back, yada yada yada. Because it's 900 degrees in Arlington and nobody can play there but Texas. I don't know.
I agree with that assessment. Philadelphia, can anybody beat them in the National League?
Probably not.
With Oswald going down?
You still got, Lee. When you fire out Holiday and Lee in a 7-game series, when you're going to have to face those two guys.
Well, that's it. That's it. I mean, the rotation's shortened and the bench is shortened, and you got to beat the best 4 out of 7. And they're 1-1, I think, across the street, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, most people think they're going to be there.
In situation too, I mean, honestly, this year, I think because he doesn't have the pressure of having to be, the guy like he was like.
Right.
Hamels is pitching better this year.
Absolutely.
Hamels has come back to where he was 3 years ago.
I almost look at that team. I almost look at Halladay as kind of laying in wait. I mean, he hasn't been pitching like Roy Halladay.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't want to face him in a 3-game series.
Right. I'll tell you a guy, perfect example of that last night. This is a guy that's not pitched well this year, Chris Carpenter for the St. Louis Cardinals. He came up large last night.
Yeah, he did.
And that start might be the kind of start that gets him on a run, because uncharacteristically, I'm a guy when I look at a box score, there's 2 things that I zero in on. First off, and then we go to the pitch count, next. But I look at the number of hits and the number of strikeouts. Those are the 2 indicators to me of what kind of stuff this guy has. If a guy's not getting strikeouts, obviously he's not bringing his best stuff. And if he's giving up a lot of hits, obviously he's no mystery. And if you look at Carpenter all year, his hit count, I've never seen a year where he's been giving up as many hits per game as he had been doing this year. And then last night, against, a good lineup, the Phillies, in a big game, they were looking at being swept at home. He come up large for him. So we'll see if that follows. But again, that's one of those ones that, you look at pitchers and you treat them like horses. Is that the buy sign now, for Chris Carpenter for coming into form? And I think of a pitcher that has had great success the last several years, but struggled so far this year. He's had some good starts recently, but Colorado and Jimenez, there's a guy that for the first half of the year.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, how can you be that bad? Be that good of a pitcher and all of a sudden be that bad?
Right. Well, you know what I look at with guys like him, especially the typical strikeout pitchers. You know, looking at other stats, other little things. I look at a lot of ground ball outs and fly ball outs. You know, especially now. You know, okay, we're halfway through the season. Some of these young pitchers, you know, they haven't thrown that many innings before. And then you look at, I don't like to look back more than, say, a week or two, because it's like, what have you done for me now?
Right.
But if you look back, say, a month ago, they were getting twice as many ground ball outs as fly ball outs. And you almost watch those lines cross. And the last couple of games, 6 ground ball outs and 17 fly ball outs. And now we're pitching in Chase Field.
Right.
I don't think so.
And another, factor like that is somebody that's been getting hit, having those average games, 6 innings, 4-run type games.
Right.
It's not a quality start, but it's not total crap either. It's just he's just average. Well, then all of a sudden you look at his line and he's been striking out 3-4 guys a game,
right? And
all of a sudden he's got 7 or 8 strikeouts. Right. To me,
he's coming into
that next game's not going to be 6 innings and 4 runs.
Right.
He's more likely to give me a 7-inning game and a 2 or 3 run game. It's an indicator that he's going the other direction. And again, it's all about finding the value in looking at these guys coming in and out of the form. And good stuff. A team that one last team to talk about, the Minnesota Twins. Here's a team that, and I did a podcast with Gil about a week or so ago that, at some point, a team that has been as good as Minnesota's been for as long as they've been.
They're going to come around.
You expect them to come around and make that run, which, as we speak, they're in the middle of that. They had a long winning streak, and now, so we'll see where it goes. But one of the things I brought up to Gil is if they don't have that winning streak soon, is this a type of team, because they're so used to winning, that once they hit the All-Star break and they look up at those standings and reality sets in, is this a type of team that's more apt to quit because they're used to being in a playoff race and now they're not?
Right. A good point.
Those are things that you gotta, and again, this is not an exact science. Handicapping, if it was an exact science that all you had to do was plug the
numbers in the computer and it's going to give you tomorrow's newspaper today?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
I always said I wanted tomorrow's newspaper today, but my luck, they'd have a frickin' typo.
Well, you can say that's where you got the Cardinals from. I mean, the Diamondbacks.
There you go. Yeah. Again, Dave, thanks for stopping by and sharing with us. And don't be a stranger. Great addition to pregame. Love having you aboard, and look forward to a lot of great stuff from you in the future.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for taking your Friday afternoon at home and coming in here.
Hey, thanks for you for prying yourself away from the Mirage pool.
Yeah, but the sun's still up.
Sun's still up. Yeah. I was going to insert a joke there, but I'm not.
Go for it. I'm not sure my wife will ever see this.
Okay. He's Dave Essler. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Thanks for watching. Best of luck second half of the baseball season. Always get your money in good.